Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Video Night Franchise Frenzy, where basically we're talking about a series of movies. Last week we did The Howling, the week before that we did House. This week, Critters, Ghoulies, and Gremlins, oh my. Actually, I'm not really going to talk about Gremlins. Do we really need to? I mean, come on. It's one of those series that's been explained ad nauseum. Anything that comes with lots of commentary tracks and makings of doesn't really need to be discussed. So, I will say this. As much as I really dig the first one, the second one is so bonkers, so bananas, basically just letting Joe Dante do whatever he wanted to do in this movie. For me, it was a special experience. So if you gotta choose, I don't know why you have to choose, honestly, just go get the double feature. It's a stupid thing to even bring up. Just watch both of them. And there will never be a third one. Stop pretending. Don't listen to any rumors. At best, you're going to get a digital remake with CGI monsters, and it just won't be the same. Because as we know, CGI, no matter how expensive it is, always looks like shit compared to physical, right in front of your face, special effects. I know they're rubber, but they're more reality than computer work. So we're going to start off with Critters. Here's Critters 1 trailer.
Of all the planets in the galaxy, they chose ours. They hide in small places.
This phone is dead.
What?
They light the dark.
Jay, any luck?
Just a minute.
There's nothing cute about them. They've come a long way, and they're hungry. Critters. They bite.
Alright, so after the massive success of Gremlins, obviously there was a huge lump of films coming out that kind of, in the same style. Critters is the only one of this series of movies that is actually really good. Really enjoyable series. And the reason why it lasted as long as it did and sticks in people's mind is because yes, it's about little creatures on the loose, but it had such a different twist to it. Some people said it was a ripoff, and word has it that the script was already written before Gremlins even came out. But of course, you know, movies get greenlit and produced because they're similar to another movie. It's very rare when something original comes along. Of the Gremlins style spin-off, ripoff, what do you want to call them? Ghoulies, there's 4 of those. All of them are complete ass. I know there's some fans out there, but seriously, complete and absolute butt. Troll, I had a teacher, 3rd grade, Mrs. Walker. She was a huge horror fanatic, and she used to tell us in heavy detail all of the horror movies that she would go see. So while we were in 3rd grade, we usually wouldn't be able to see this kind of stuff. She would basically tell us, I mean, it was just like a campfire tale, but just in the classroom. I can't believe she never got busted for telling us about, like, oh, and then they peeled the face off, and then they sawed him in half, and then he ate through his stomach. It was stunning, the stuff that she would tell us, but she told us about Troll, and I thought it was going to be the most amazing film ever, and then when I actually saw it years later, I was, like, dumbfounded, because that movie is also complete ass. And, of course, Troll 2, legendary for being nothing like the first movie, in fact, not having any real trolls in it at all. There is Hobgoblins. I think there's a sequel. Also so insanely bad, almost purposely bad. I think it's supposed to be campy. It's been on Mystery Science Theater. If you haven't seen it, great episode. And there's Munchies. Munchies, I watched a lot. It was on HBO like non-stop. In fact, I'm not even particularly certain it was in theaters because I've never actually seen a box office report for the movie. And that one's, it's okay. It's almost another one of those purposely campy movies. Apparently there's a couple spin-offs where Munchie is no longer looking like a little gremlin critter kind of thing. It's much bigger and it looks like a nightmare. It's more terrifying than the original just based on the fact that the costume's so creepy. Anything with dead eyes like that, just kind of looking at you, but not looking at you, makes you uncomfortable as hell. And then there's Elves. If you've never seen Elves, let's just say this: Dan Haggerty, Shopping Mall, Nazis, Creep Show. It's family loving, weird stuff. I don't just go look it up. It's too. It gives me nightmares and I start sweating when I think about it. And you might notice my voice is a little bit different because I just had a massive sneezing attack, and the only way to stop the snot coming out is I had to shove a couple critters up my nose. So they're just kind of sleeping in there, soaking up the nose goblins, or what do I call them? I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm sneezing a lot. All right, so with Critters. This is the very first scary movie that I ever saw. Technically, I saw Gremlins, but I never really thought it was supposed to be scary. It's more of a thrill ride. Critters definitely aims a little bit different. There is, guts being chewed up. Billy Zane, by the way, one of his very first roles, getting his guts eaten out by a critter. Highly amusing. Now, back then I was terrified. In fact, I wouldn't even sit on the ground because I had seen this movie, and I was just like, they're going to get me if I don't know. The logic when you're a kid is really dumb because you're just like, well, if you sit on the ground and a critter attacks you, if you're only 2 feet higher, do you really think they can't? You watch the movie. You literally watch the movie, so you know that they shoot like little thorns out of their head that poison you and put you to sleep, and then they can bounce off stuff and then eat your guts. So why in the world would I think that not sitting on the ground would keep me safe? I was like 9 or something. I'm just really a weird kid who didn't really think through things. Don't even get me started on the movie Leviathan. I was even in class, still terrified, like it was gonna come out of a gutter of one of the air vents or something, and just attack me while I was in the middle of class. But your imagination takes control. That's the great thing about scary movies is yes, it releases the tension, but also it gets your imagination really going. Sometimes a little too much. The first Critters movie is directed by Stephen Herrick, who would go on to primarily just do comedies. He's responsible for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, The Mighty Ducks, Three Musketeers, Mr. Holland's Opus. Almost immediately after all that, his career kind of crashed and burned. I mean, have you seen Holy Man with Eddie Murphy? That's a bigger horror film than anything that Critters movies. All just cluster them all up, all the scary moments, and it's still less terrifying than Holy Man. That is a piece of shit. And Scott Grimes. I think this is really the first thing he did that people took notice of. I never really understood why he didn't break out. And I chalk it up to anti-redheadism. Is that a thing? Anti-redheadism? I'm kidding. There's probably just, he's a child actor, and he was an okay actor as a kid, but as you get older, he probably went through that awkward period where A, he's no longer a cute kid, and B, there's a lot more competition. But the nice part is he's still working today. He shows up and stuff. He's in that Robin Hood movie with Russell Crowe that I can never finish because it's, my God, is it long and boring. What happened to like the Robin Hood and King Arthur stuff where they threw in fantasy and sword and sorcery? Why is it always got to be like, they're going to make this as real as possible? Make it authentic. Try to stick true to the history. Hey, buddy, we don't know if Robin Hood or King Arthur ever existed, so have fun. Throw some dragons in. Throw some sorcerers. I don't care. Stop making it so drab and gladiatorish. The best part I think about Critters is the pace, the tone, everything. It really works. It never drags. It's a low budget movie for sure. It's like $2 million. I think New Line Cinema was trying to expand a little bit after getting some money from Nightmare on Elm Street. A lot of people think Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, is what made New Line Cinema. No, I mean I think they probably made about $10 million, profit after promotion costs and re-releasing and everything they have to do. There's a lot goes into movies if you don't know anything about how. I'm not even in the movie business, but I've discovered that there's so much more going on than just hey, let's make the movie, and then oh wait, we gotta print up posters and mail out. Back in the day, they had to mail out movies, and these things weigh a ton. They must have cost a fortune, and I don't think the theater even covers any of that cost. I think it's just part of the loss they take when they send them out. Now they just do it digital and just over the internet. I don't know. I haven't worked in a movie theater forever. So, they had a decent chunk of cash. They couldn't go crazy and start making, like, Lord of the Rings style movies. Yeah, they're still purely independent, surviving off the first 2 Nightmare movies. This one actually was a decent hit. It made about $13 million. Of course, nowhere near Gremlins money. I mean, good God. If they had made Gremlins money, they would have been in Lord of the Rings area much earlier. I also really like, I think the heart of the movie is Charlie. Don Keith Opper is such a strange, awkward guy who, in the first movie, is kind of a drunk, kind of a loser, and everybody mocks him. And he kind of comes around throughout the series. And he's the only one that's consistent through all four movies. And he's a really likable guy. He's in a fantastic movie called Android, if you can find it. Him and a friend of his, they did that. I think I want to say it's Aaron Lipstadt. They did that movie, and it's fantastic. The sequel, not sequel, but the second movie they did was called City Limits. Only worth it watching during the Mystery Science Theater, because it is really dull. It's strange how they can get a first movie together, the second one just kind of falls apart. He did write some of Critters, so maybe he beefed up his role. I don't know, but it's really worth watching. He is a fantastic guy. I wish he worked more. I think he's another one of those guys that just has a certain face you remember, but I'm not sure a lot of people out there are like, yeah, I want to cast him. Not exactly the best looking guy, but a good actor. All right, so the second movie, of course, the Critters 2, because, we didn't go all weird with titles back then.
Grover's Bend. It's just a speck on the map of the universe.
Transform.
They get a different class of tourist here.
Company's coming.
Noisier. Pushier. They're turning this peaceful little town into dinner. Critters 2.
I can't hear you. Anybody out there hear me?
We need a sheriff.
Go check the yellow pages.
Those hungry hairballs from outer space are on a roll.
Let's just get help. Oh, who are we gonna call? Critter Busters? These guys are great.
And they'll eat anything.
We're gonna end up tomorrow's leftovers.
There must be hundreds of them.
Critters 2, the main course.
You got nothing to lose but your lives.
Alright, so Critters 2, less focus on terror, gore, even though there's plenty of blood in this movie. It's still PG-13 blood. The first one seemed to gear a little bit different. The humor was, I want to say more situation, like the juxtaposition of these horrifying creatures, but they also look a little goofy, and the fact that they had their own language. That's the one thing. Gremlins really didn't talk. I mean, there was the brain gremlin, but that's an anomaly. And at best, it was said like one word. The Critters 2, they had their own language. They're from outer space. So that was kind of cool. They had like all these little gags when they would say stuff. The second one isn't really on scaring you. It's more like mayhem, like just a thrill ride. I think part of that is due to David Twohy. He wrote this one, and he's known for great movies like, the Pitch Black series, Chronicles of Riddick, the Arrival. His is more adventure-based and more sci-fi. There's a lot more sci-fi. Part of it's also because the budget is double of the first movie, so they can handle more special effects and therefore handle more creative ideas. The fact that the hero bounty hunters, they're able to change their face at will. They kind of touch upon it. You see it here and there in the first movie. This one, they go a little more expansive in special effects. I mean, not the idea, but the simple fact that they can take the critters and combine them all together in a huge ball, which is a great visual to see. If you haven't seen the movie, that's probably the best part. I just love watching that thing roll around and run people over and just leave like a skeleton covered in like little slabs of meat. This one is Scott Grimes coming back, and I don't know if it was from budgetary reasons. They thought maybe they just covered the story they needed to cover with the rest of the family. So it's basically just him coming back, seeing Charlie, and Ugg comes back, and I can't remember the character that Ugg's partner that keeps changing all the time. But Charlie is now a space bounty hunter with them, so that's pretty cool. His character's changing from just being a worthless drunk to being an intergalactic adventurer. And I really like the fact that it seems crazy now, but the Easter egg critters, they thought they were like eggs. Now, of course, anybody with half a brain would know that's not an egg. They covered that up, whatever, and that kind of drives the story. There's some stuff that's really memorable when the guy comes out completely covered in critters and his face is all tore up. That's horrifying. This movie didn't do very well. I thought it was a huge movie for some reason, but I look at the box office and the first one's a marginal. Cost $2 million, made 13. This one cost 4, made 3.5. 3.8, so it's kind of a bummer that the second one wasn't even profitable. I think later on video it found a huge following and on TV, but that was it for the end of the series. Everybody thought, no more theatrical, and direct-to-video was really a thing for movies that were too worthless. They were just garbage or very low-budget movies that nobody would put in a theater, and Critters still had some sort of pull to it. People would still think, hey, maybe if you made a third one, I'd see it. But is it worth the line, put it in the theaters? No. So they decided to take the two movies, 3 and 4, shoot them basically back to back, reuse some footage, and save money that way. It's kind of like the way the Salkinds did. They started that trend, I think, of shooting movies back to back. That way they can change the contract. Of course, let me be clear. The Salkinds did do it on purpose with the Musketeers. They realized they had so much footage, like, well, crap, let's just cut this in half and add a little bit more to finish off the second movie. And but they purposely did it with the Superman movies. Of course, that went epically bad, and they had to reshoot almost the entire second movie. But this is a very smart way for New Line Cinema to go, hey, people dig the series. It's not going to make us really any money in the theaters. So why don't we just do this quickly, shoot them for, $1.5 million, $2 million, and let's put them out there in video, because the market is getting huge. Video stores everywhere now. And people are hungry for content that maybe they're not going to pay for in the theaters, but on video, surely they'd spend a couple bucks and hang out with the family and watch the movie. This is back when a movie would cost you $1 or maybe $2 at most. Crazy, huh? And give them some sort of profit. Most of the time when people would go to the video store, if they hadn't heard of it, they're not going to rent it. At best they're like, oh, that looks like some crappy Italian movie. Maybe, is that Eric Estrada? But with the name behind the sequel, it grabs more interest. And all of a sudden, I think because of Critters 3 and 4 being so successful, all of a sudden everybody jumped in the market. Any movie that was marginally successful or it had a sequel but it didn't do very well, they thought, well, there's still life to the franchise. Let's continue it in some way or form. They still do that today because there's like a bunch of Tremor sequels, and Scorpion King never seems to go away. And the Marine, I can't believe they've got so many sequels out of the Marine. I guess people really like that, but teach their own.
After their first visit,
Call the army. They're here. Who? Who? Them?
you thought they were destroyed. But they returned.
And they're getting bigger.
After the second encounter, you thought the fuzzy devils were dead. But you were wrong.
You're not as smart as you think you are.
The critters are back. They've just rolled into the big city
Oh, safe at home.
in search of new neighbors.
They're aliens.
Aliens in the base.
You have to believe her. They're big, they're huge.
And they're never late for dinner.
We don't have a gun up here or anything like that.
How about a meat cleaver?
What is eating him?
Eat that.
Critters 3. You are what they eat.
Open wide.
Alright, so Critters 3, Charlie is basically the only one that returns. There's a slight appearance by Ugg at the end, but I'll get to that in a sec. This one is not loved by critics. I don't know how the fans feel about it, but I remember watching this one over and over when it first came out. I really enjoyed this one at the time. I haven't seen it probably about 10 years. And I know it's a little more gag-heavy than the rest of the series. But I remember just thinking that it was fun, it was exciting, there's a lot of clever stuff going on in such a tight shoot. You could tell this thing was shot very fast and all in one building. It's a good idea, actually. It's more claustrophobic than any of the series. And this is Leonardo DiCaprio's first role, I believe. I've read that Cary Elwes said that he was offered the role first, and I find that very hard to believe because Leonardo DiCaprio, I think, was like 15 or 16 at the time this was released. So was Cary Elwes supposed to be playing very, very young? Because I'm sure he was about 25 at the time, and, you know, he was either just about to go into Hot Shots or already shot Hot Shots. So I find that strange. Maybe they offered to him like way ahead of time when they thought the character was going to be completely different. Maybe he was going to be the lead. I don't know. It makes no sense. This one is probably the weakest of the four and still highly enjoyable though. So far the series is doing well. It may have gone straight to video. The budget might be tighter, but they really thought it out. Instead of just going, well, let's just cut back on this and this and this. They're like, we'll make a story that fits the budget. Something that you can still have special effects, exciting stuff, gore, and still keep the pace moving, but, you know, save some money.
You've seen them wreak havoc on Earth.
Hairballs.
Those 2 eggs are the last 2 eggs. You are instructed to place the eggs in the pot.
The last 2 eggs were launched into orbit.
It won't scan. I can't tell you what's inside.
And now they're having a blast
He's going for the pod.
in outer space.
That's the critters! I'm a bounty hunter.
You've been floating around in that pod for over half a century.
The killer hairballs have relocated.
I got him!
Congratulations, Charlie. You just murdered the ship.
Get another ship.
It's the only ship, you idiots!
And have a new place to play.
What are these?
Those are eggs. They've been busy.
They're dining from an all-new menu of cosmic cuisine.
You know those, man-eating hairballs that you do not believe in? They are real up close. I'm leaving.
But they'd rather eat on Earth.
I propose that we just hole up here and wait for them to come rescue us.
Albert, company.
Hey,
Where are the eggs?
you do not come in here with your goddamn stormtroopers.
Someone must cooperate.
Did I hear you wanted these?
The eggs.
These are the last ones.
Critters 4. They're invading your space.
Chill out, asshole.
Alright, so Critters 4 obviously is the end of the series. I really didn't understand why they never bothered to go with more sequels. And maybe just New Line Cinema lost the interest, wanted to move on, especially since I think by the time this was coming around that Warner Brothers started coming interest. Like, hey, we don't do direct-to-video sequels. Let's stick theatrical. The fourth one's pretty good. And even though there is an inconsistency in the logic, I think, of getting Charlie up there. If it takes forever and a day for him... Okay, so at the end of 3, they take the last few eggs and they put in this little pod. It's supposed to freeze them, keep them safe, and take them back to like some lab, you know, so they don't become extinct. They're the last of their kind. Charlie gets stuck in there, and he gets frozen as well, and he goes through space and rotating, whatever. And it's the far-flung future. He ends up on a spaceship. But I always wondered, why did it take so insanely long to get from Earth to there? When it seemed like in the first movie, the critters escaped from some prison planet out in the middle of nowhere, shot out, and, wait, am I thinking Night of the Creeps? I apologize, everybody. I think I might have combined the 2 movies. But the critters still, they came from outer space, and they seemed to get from wherever they were to our planet pretty fast without needing to be frozen. So that logic never made much sense to me. But I think it was just a way of selling the movie. Just like, well, you know, let's just get this going. Outer space is an interesting idea to take the series into, which was kind of a cliche. They started doing that throughout the 90s and 2000s, putting these horror monsters in space. Leprechaun 4 in space, Hellraiser in space, No, Michael Myers never went to space, but I think they talked about it. Jason, of course, being the most infamous Jason X, which is actually a pretty decent movie. That was in space. It was just kind of a running joke. I'm glad they kind of stopped it. I think it's a Dracula 3000, where Dracula's in space, but whatever. So this one's a lot of fun. They reuse special effects from the other movies for some of the space events. You know, the spaceship flying around. I feel like they actually used some special effects from Android as well, which is okay because Don Keith Opper bought back the rights from Android from Roger Corman when Roger Corman saw that it was a flop, and he doesn't do flops, so they bought it back, they put it out in theaters, and I think they made their money back. Not a lot, but still. But they probably said, hey, we got special effects from Android you can still use. It's only like 10 years old. And they're like, okay, well, that'll pad out some of the sequences. Brad Dourif is in this one. He's excellent as always. This was kind of a little beneath him, I would say. I don't know. It's hard to... he was never a lead actor. But he's a fantastic actor. I guess it's just because of how he looked. It's hard for him to get leading roles. But, you know, he really comes through. There is a guy, I don't remember his name. He's in all those subspecies movies. And embarrassingly, I remember him most from General Hospital. He was in Critters 4. And I actually like him too, even though he's pretty hideous looking. But he was always a good villain. So the series ends. Ugg comes back. Ugg's kind of a villain now, which is kind of a surprise. How many years ahead of time is this in the future? I can't remember. Is Ugg a clone? Or is that really what he looks like now? How is he not? Well, I guess since he's an alien, there really are no rules on aging. Really should have watched the third and fourth one before I did this. But I thought I had them kind of memorized, but I do not. Angela Bassett's in this one, which is a pleasant surprise. It's always nice kind of seeing actors that are good, but right before they broke through, I mean, this is like literally like the year before, or maybe two before she was in What's Love Got to Do with It. I think she was actually in Boys in the Hood prior to this. It's hard to tell with direct-to-video movies, especially when they're shot back-to-back, because sometimes the production is slowed because they don't have to rush the special effects to save money. They usually hire one company that can do it really, at a deliberate pace, save money. So this might have been done a year or two before she broke out in Boys in the Hood. Who knows? All four movies are really entertaining. Of course, the first two being better just because of budgetary, and I think they have a little bit better writing. Of course, it's nice seeing Scott Grimes as the lead. The cast would change a lot throughout the movies, and they always had like some teenage boy, but never as interesting as him. And I'm talking about Leonardo DiCaprio being in that competition. You can get all four on a set from Warner Brothers, fan favorites, I think it's called, 4 fan favorites. You can get them really cheap, totally worth it. And I've heard that the series is going to come back in a web series. I don't want that. I mean, I know people love the Mortal Kombat, but I think they're just desperate for Mortal Kombat stuff. It is entertaining, but seeing stuff in like 10, 15-minute clips is kind of annoying. I would rather they just did a whole movie, and maybe they think this kind of stuff won't be greeted well, but I'm kind of sick of horror having no sense of humor whatsoever. That was my favorite part of the 80s. It was not only because it was special effects bonanza. I mean, The Thing, The Fly, and The Blob being the pinnacle of movie. I didn't have all remakes. Those are my favorite 80s horror movies. But a lot of them also had a sense of humor. You could laugh and then crap your pants out of fear. And that is what's missing. I see Ghostbusters is coming back, and they're talking about a Gremlins remake, so maybe Critters. Maybe Critters will return, but you can keep your Ghoulies, because I don't care. But that'll probably come back, because the Charles Band is a little more desperate. I think the New Line Cinema is. So you'll more likely see that. But Critters series comes back. It'll probably be CGI. Who knows? But I hope they throw some practical effects in there. Maybe they can bring back some of the originals. Who knows? Maybe they go for a straight-up remake. All right, that's it with the Franchise Frenzy series. I think we might be able to fit one more in before Halloween. I'm contemplating another series. I think I have maybe Fright Night. I know that's only 2 of each, the originals and the remakes, but that's kind of a series. And there's a lot to talk about, because that's a series that's so flip-floppy, lopsided. A lot of people love certain pieces. A lot of people hate certain other pieces. I kind of want to talk about those. So maybe we'll fit one more episode in before Halloween. All right, that's it. Check us out on Facebook under Retro Rock Entertainment. You can find all the episodes of Video Night there, as well as our other series, Back in Tunes, Stumbling Towards Adulthood, and whatever else pops in my head for the moment. I have a very short attention span. You can probably tell by the way I talk. You can probably tell by the way I walk. I'm a video man. All right, everybody, have a good night. Bye.